That song was chosen for a very specific reason. I think it's incredibly representative of 1111, what we stand for. Everybody in the space is clamoring to find out how they can monetize AI. We're not part of those. We're sticking true to what we believe in. And that's what that song is all about. It's Headstrong by Trapped. And when I was selecting songs, I was going through the usual list. And I really wanted it to have meaning because I've known Mike for a long time, Adam, Troy, had the pleasure of meeting Jim over the years and Justin. And I think ARG really stands for something and you believe in it. And you're not playing the games that's happening in the industry, right? You're so committed to your customers. And I believe that ethos matches our organizations up incredibly well. So what does 1111 really stand for? We are the cyber resiliency platform. And that's a really powerful statement, and it's a big statement. The reason we feel so confident making that statement is we meet customers where they are, all right? So let's kind of talk about where our customers are. I'm still out of breath if you can't tell. They had me shadow boxing out there. But let's talk about where your customers are. You are all consultants. You're not technology sellers. That's a mindset. That's not a thing to be taken lightly. In order to help consult your clients to get to where they want to be, you have to understand where they are. Every organization out there, they have the number one unwritten strategic goal for this year. Remember this. They're trying to keep up with their business. They could have a full list of all projects. Their number one strategic initiative is to keep up with the demands of the business. If they're a for-profit organization, they're trying to create a customer experience that draws their customers in and creates loyalty. They're trying to outpace their competition. If they're a nonprofit, if they're municipality and education, they're trying to service the communities that they service to the best of their ability with smaller budgets, right? No matter where they fall in, no matter what vertical, everybody is facing three same challenges to accomplish those: time, talent, and budget. They have a finite amount of time to do the proactive things, respond to the business, keep the lights running, right? Because it takes a ton of care and feeding to keep operations running. They have limited talent. It's hard to find people. Even if they have the budget, it's really, really hard to find people. It took us 7 months to fill 3 SA spots because we needed to find the right people. So I'm coming off that experience. We just hired our 3rd one. And then budget. Nobody has an unlimited budget, but if any of your customers have unlimited budgets, let's talk over lunch. All right? So they all face the same 3 hurdles to keep up with the business and do all of this. All right? So let's really talk about where they are and how we can help address those challenges as you encounter them. As you see your customers are stretched too thin on projects. They don't have the time to do the proactive activities they're being asked for. Let's help them find time. Let's help them reclaim time, right? If they're venturing into a new arena, a new technology, a new way to service the business, let's help them find the talent to support it, right? Let's also bring in talent that knows what they don't. That's the true value. Complement, not replace, all right? And then budgets. Let's find ways to make every dollar they spend more impactful. Budget isn't about cost, it's about value, okay? So we want to make sure we're enabling you to show the value that you bring to an organization. So let's talk about some scenarios where we've done this. How many people here know your customers have gone out and looked for cyber insurance? All right, so I'll give you a little hint. Almost every one of your customers has explored the idea of cyber insurance. If they are a B2B provider, meaning that they provide services to another business, they're being inspected right now because of supply chain. Because here's what happened. Anybody hear about CrowdStrike's problems? Right? For the baby boomers in here and the Gen X, RSA, right? They got hacked. It's supply chain. Everybody's securing their supply chain. So if you're a business-to-business provider, if I'm a law firm, and you provide me all of what you want to patent, I now become the treasure trove for hackers to break your company, right? So they're getting inspected. They're being asked, what's your security posture? When they go for cyber insurance, there's a pretty standardized checklist. If any of you don't have the checklist, we will provide it to you, okay? It's a pretty standardized checklist of questions that any insurance broker goes through to give them a rough estimate on what cyber insurance is gonna cost. And they're pretty simplified questions. And we work with a lot of insurance brokers. We had an insurance broker that brought somebody to us, said, hey, their premiums are gonna be outrageous. They're a mid-size accounting firm, about 300, 400 employees, not huge, but they needed cyber insurance because they provide services not to end citizens, but rather to businesses. They do a lot of, their CPAs, they provide accounting to businesses. And their customers are asking them what their cyber posture is. Do they have cyber insurance? So we get engaged. We did some consulting with them. And there's two topics that you really need to discuss with your clients. And the higher up the chain within an organization that you go to have these conversations, the much more relevant they are. One is, how do you want your team to engage with the day-to-day management of this technology? Two, how much risk appetite do you have to hold versus shift somewhere else, right? And we started talking to them about this. They had a good IT staff, but we found a lot of holes in there. They didn't have a documented, updated cyber resiliency plan. They didn't have a business continuity plan. Here's what's funny, they had already invested in a DR site. They had a DR site all up and running, but they had no plan, right? And I think it was Matt that said, a goal with no plan is just a wish, right? Imagine that your business is hanging by the thread of a wish. That's kind of the position they were in. So we engaged with them on a consulting engagement. Was about 60-day long, a 60-day engagement. Here's what's funny. What we saved them on their cyber insurance was paid for that engagement within 8 months. It was a 3-year policy. So yes, we provided them savings, but we also provided them peace of mind. We helped them understand what they didn't know, the gaps. We addressed the talent challenge that they were facing because they didn't know how to go about this. They didn't know how to maintain updating. We also addressed the budget because now, after they're gonna have 28 months of savings that they're gonna have. And we also further talked about the gaps that they have. We identified the gaps. We helped them use investments that they already made to fill those gaps. And we identified the ones that they couldn't fill with their current investments. And we asked, how much risk do you want to own yourself? And how much engagement do you want your team to focus on this? They're like, well, we already have a backup admin. They're dedicated to backups. They do the restores, they do all this stuff. So we want to own the backups. They need an immutable target. So we simply provided them an immutable target. We didn't replace their backup software. We didn't do any of that. We just gave them some very low cost immutable storage that was very resilient, that met the needs, not just of the compliance, not just of what cyber insurance was asking for, but what the needs of the business were. Because that's what you have to meet. Compliance is table stakes. Meeting the needs of the business is what we should all strive for. So with that, yeah, an opportunity came out of it. But we're continuing conversations. We talked to them about, we understood where some of their challenges were. They had just invested heavily CapEx into infrastructure, but they were concerned about what their VMware renewal. Anybody here have some VMware conversations in the past year? Oh my God, I'm so sick of them. Yeah, we were being therapists for quite a while, but we had this conversation with them. And they knew that the cost was going to be astronomical in about 18 months after their next refresh stage comes up. They're on a 3-year cycle. And they signed a 3-year, they got 3 years worth of support up front with VMware, and they got 3 years of support on the hardware. So we're constantly in conversations with them to talk about what that next stage is going to look like. Because through consulting, we understood where they were. Through conversations, we understood where they want to go. We jointly laid a path for them to go along that met what their business wanted to do. It's really easy to walk in and tell somebody, oh, you got to replace all this, right? Move to my platform. It's not the right thing to do, right? That's why you're consultants, not technology sellers. a different conversation. That approach takes time, takes patience, takes consistent conversations, because that direction changes like the wind, right? They have to respond to their customers. Another example I want to give you is a private equity investment banking firm that we work with. They simply wanted to replicate. They had infrastructure, they had a full team there, but they didn't have a DR site. They replicated to us. DR as a service, everything worked great. They loved everything about it, but then they actually had to use it, which that's not a good day, right? That's the worst day of every IT manager's life. And they failed over, and they failed over for 3 weeks. And they were able to get their production site back up and running. But here's the funny part. When they failed over, they were like, this is actually performing better than our own environment. And here's why. We don't believe DR should run in a degraded state. We believe DR is there to continue the business operations, not help you limp along. Okay? Here's our goal, what we believe cyber resiliency is to be able to get back to productivity and servicing your customers. It's not to have the blinking lights back on, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about when we do testing, what our test entails, because our KPIs for a successful test are vastly different than many in the industry. So their teams, their users, were more happy with the performance than they were when it was on their own infrastructure. And they asked why that is. Hey, we got hit, whatever that virus was or whatever happened in our environment that shut us down for a day, it helped us out on performance. People actually thought like IT fixed something in their environment. Here's what they chose to do. They said, hey, can we redo our contract and just keep everything there? But how would we do DR? Well, we talked about how DR is built in. We walked them through that journey. We understood where they wanted to get to. Here's another thing that we understood. We understood how sensitive they are and how concerned they were to relinquish control. If you can get somebody to give you their data center, they will give you their kids for a weekend. All right, let me tell you that little secret. All right, they were very, very concerned about the relinquishing of control. So here's what we designed for them. Every 6 months, we take their production site and we fail it over to our DR site and we allow them to run for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, we fail it back. Now, within our interface, they could run a test at any time. But we understood what was important to them. We asked. We didn't just take the signed contract and run. We consulted with them. And that is the difference between providing a technology or a service and being a true business partner. So with that one, what we addressed was time, because now their team isn't focused on managing infrastructure. They're actually focused on managing the applications and providing the business intelligence across the data. They're a private equity investment bank, right? So it's all about data. It's all about finding the next great thing. Right? It's all about identifying trends, identifying efficiencies within organizations. So now their team, they didn't let go of any of their IT staff. They reshifted their focus. And their focus is now using the data that they have to extrapolate the greatest amount of value to the business. So they are now servicing the business better. It's not about the performance we're providing. It's about how they're using their time, how they're using their talent. And that's where the power of this solution truly came in. They are now more agile than they've ever been, simply because they took the people that they had and put them into a better position to impact the business. The gentleman from Zoom mentioned he's been in IT for about 45 years. Oh, wow, that was quick.